Welcome back everybody to Forza Horizon 6, and today we're taking a look at the 2024 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. So this is part of the 6th generation of the Camaro, which was in production between October 2015 and December 2023. This ZL1 high performance version is a track orientated variant that was introduced in 2017, and we also have that 2017 version of this car in the game. And this generation of the car had a refresh in 2018 for the 2019 model year, and that includes the likes of a slightly changed interior and altered visuals in terms of the rear, and especially with these new lights, which to be honest I'm not a fan of. They look a lot worse than the standard ones that we had in the 2017 version, and ultimately they look like they're on the back of some person's car from the early 2000s that they've tuned. I've fairly certain, clear rear lights went out of fashion a long time ago. But everything else that you'd expect from this car is still here. It's just not quite as good as the 2017 version for a few reasons. But still, it's a very handsome looking car overall still. Still got a nice enough interior, as you can see. Everything that you'd expect is here. Including a 6-speed manual, as you can see. All very nice. Not got the most amount of rear legroom, but this is more of a coupe than anything like a family saloon or anything like that. Still got the woefully small boot though that these cars have long been plagued by. As you can see, not a very wide opening and not very big or deep either. So not particularly great in that regard. And like I said, this isn't particularly good in comparison to the 2017 version for one crucial reason, and that is the fact it weighs more. It's got an additional 24 pounds in weight, and therefore the acceleration, because it shares the same engine, same power, same torque, is slightly slower. That said, despite that extra weight, it doesn't handle any worse. The G ratings at 60 and 100 are exactly the same as the older version at 1.21 for 60 miles an hour and 1.3 G at 100 miles an hour. So yeah, you've not got worse handling, you just have slightly less performance in terms of acceleration. It's not drastically different to 60, but it is about 0.35 of a second slower to 100. And so that's the main issue with this car. But still, it's got the very, very charismatic engine that I've always liked, and that is a 6.2 litre supercharged V8, producing a very healthy 650 horsepower and 650 pounds-feet of torque. But due to that 24 extra pounds in weight, like I said, at 3,907 pounds, it is slower in terms of acceleration. Now, one benefit this car does have over the 2017 version, as far as this game is concerned, is that due to that extra weight, it therefore has a lower PI rating at 718, whereas the 2017 ZL1 is at 727. And you can eliminate all of that extra weight by only using one PI with race front and rear anti-roll bars and a race driveline. So then, therefore, you still have 8 PI to play with in addition over the older version. So as far as this game is concerned, it's probably a car that you should go for if you want to upgrade a Camaro in, this class, which is, I think it's S1. It is worthy in that regard. And in another regard as well, in the terms of the fact that there are additional visual upgrades that you can do to this car. Now, in terms of the bonnet, it's exactly the same as the older version, which is nice to see that they've carried forward, as they are different to a lot of other bonnets that you put on these kind of muscle cars. So that's nice. But you do get a different wide body kit from Street Fighter LA, whereas with the 2017 version you only got the Forza version. So that looks substantially different than the standard car, that is for sure. And in terms of the rear wing, you can get a different one as well that is not available on the older version. So again, it is from Street Fighter LA, and there you go. It's got carbon fiber, and certainly helps improve the handling and the braking. So whereas you've still got this standard Forza Edition version, and you can remove it entirely if you so wish. So there are minor alterations as far as the in-game car is concerned, but as far as the car overall, in comparison to the older version, it's not perhaps as good as. I don't think the rear lights look as good as the older version, and ultimately that extra weight does hamper its acceleration. But nonetheless, let's get out onto a track. I think we're going to go to Hakubu today and see just what this car can do. Right, so here we are at the Hakubu circuit, and as per usual, we'll hear what the car sounds like, then we'll talk about it some more. So yeah, sounds as good as the older version, because at the end of the day that's all it is. A little bit of extra weight on the board. So yeah, still sounds fantastic with that V8 rumble and then the supercharger whine over the top. And yeah, still pretty potent even with that additional weight. 0 to 60 in 3.633 seconds. 0 to 107.55 seconds, and onto a top speed of 186 miles an hour. Like I said, not as quick as the older version in terms of acceleration on that front, but it still handles perfectly well. It's really well balanced, just like the older car is. You can really truck it about even at like excessive speeds, and it will hang on in there. And yeah, but ultimately it does feel a little bit like filler for the festival playlist car lineup. Because even though this is new to the Forza series, we've never had this is easily the newest Camaro that we've had, and it will be the newest Camaro that we've had, because currently Camaro is not being built anymore. So yeah, that is obviously one good aspect of this being added to the game, but ultimately, due to it not being any different in a positive way to the older version, it does feel ultimately like filler. But still, it is only 20 points in the festival playlist, so it's not like you're going to have to do a lot of hard work to get it. And ultimately, if you're more interested in like sort of under N600, you'll be getting points to get that car anyway. So yeah, it's just like an additional bonus really, but I really would have preferred a more different Camaro that we may well never have had before over this one. But ultimately, as far as the retro-inspired muscle cars go, the Camaro has always been my preferred version car out of the three that you can think of, like the Challenger and the Mustang as well. Because the Challenger, even though they've always had a huge amount of power, they've always never been able to get away from the fact that they just constantly weigh far too much, and as a consequence the handling has never been particularly great. Yeah, it's just not been a massively evolving car as far as performance goes outside of straight line speed. And the Mustangs, even though I do like a lot of them, it's only really the high performance ones that have really made me sit up and pay attention, whereas the more standard ones, you know, like the GT and such, have yeah been fine, but they've not been ones that I necessarily gravitate towards. Whereas the Camaro, yeah, pretty much across the board, they've all been pretty damn fun. The SS has always been a fairly solid, you know, base performance version of the Camaro, and then, you know, we've got this version, and then the 1LE of the ZL1 as well has been fantastic, which is even more track orientated focused. And then my ultimate favourite version of this car is the 2015 Z28, which has an even bigger engine, albeit naturally aspirated. But yeah, it just looks absolutely fantastic, and yeah, it's a really fun car to drive. So yeah, even though I'm disappointed that this isn't much different to the ZL1 in a positive light, it is ultimately still a really good car. And if this is the first Camaro, a modern Camaro at least, that you've driven, then you will undoubtedly like it. But as far as context goes, yeah, this does ultimately feel a bit like filler. Nonetheless, though, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it and how you feel about this car being added to the game by the festival playlist, or whether or not you think it should have just been part of the main game to start with. But yeah, I'm still interested to hear what you think of it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the actual car in the game itself, it does have some advantages, chiefly the lower PI rating, meaning you do have more to play with when it comes to upgrading it. And like I said, you only have to spend 1 PI to get rid of that additional weight. So yeah, as far as upgrading it in the game goes, it does have its advantages, and ultimately you do have some extra body modifications as well. So yeah, it's not a complete loss as far as it being added to the game. I just feel like ultimately it does feel like filler, and I'm sure many other people feel that way as well. Nonetheless, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.